Jailene here, doing the extra credit Casual Ambassador Incantation randomized, and Coach will be asking me the random questions. Go ahead.
So you don't do in-person real-time reading?
Yes, we do, but we classify them as soft field reads, which is basically any read that we do outside of ideal lab conditions. The soft field reads can have a high degree of accuracy, but there was, especially if done by someone who's had sufficient mojo reading training, but there's always going to be a higher degree of difficulty associated with it. Having a soft field read is better than no read at all, but of course you want the firmest confirmation possible, and for that you should send in your video to our email pod_lair@yahoo.com so we can take a look at it in our lab and get back to you.
What is your background?
I've been a dear friend of Coach's for over 10 years. I was the first person that he showed his work to. My professional background is in project management, consulting, and finance. And I've always had a big interest in any topic related to spirituality and metaphysical topics, and really anything related to self-development.
How you doing?
Doing great, working on my research project as usual.
Have you read Sally Smartpants?
No, we haven't read Sally Smartpants. She wasn't amongst the first 10,000 that we canvassed for our work, but now that you mention her, we'll go ahead and add her to our upcoming casework.
I don't see the phenomenon, therefore it doesn't exist.
Yes, it does exist, and you'll see it, as will anyone who applies themselves properly. A lot of people are under the wrong impression of how a phenomenon is validated, and that it's only considered valid if it can be observed by any person unaided, when in fact the validity of a phenomenon, or to prove the validity of a phenomenon, includes the principles of tacit knowledge and relevant resources.
Can you read so-and-so? Previously done.
Yeah, we've actually read them before. They're Ni Zai, Ni Sixth Sense, with Zai Tactical Logic. And you should know that my mojo reading accuracy rating in the field is still pending.
I don't have mojo design. I am unique.
Everyone is unique while still having a mojo design. Otherwise it would be like saying that humans have lost their uniqueness because most have 2 hands with 5 fingers each. There are 32 gender mojo designs and roughly 7 billion people on this planet. 7 billion divided by 32 still makes for a vast array within a mojo design. And we call the themes within these variations riffs. So having a mojo design doesn't preclude you from being unique. It actually enhances your understanding of your uniqueness and explains it more accurately.
Can you read me?
Yes, we can, given the right circumstances. However, there are varying degrees of difficulty based on personal and environmental factors. In this case, it would be a field read, which is more challenging, but still doable.
What is Coach's background?
Coach is a prodigious savant and a synesthete, which means that he has some issues, but also some special abilities. And these special abilities directly help him in solving the cases that we're working on.
Can you read so-and-so? Easy read.
Yes, we can. Let's see. They are a Nai Ji, Nai envisioning with Ji code of conduct, which is a mojo that you see very frequently in this coffee shop bubble.
What do you have coming up next?
Next, we'll be releasing 2,000 new celebrity samples over the next few months through weekly quizzes that the general public can test themselves on. We just released our first ebook, Pod Lair Proclamation, and the next ebook we're going to be working on will be on mojo reading, and that will be after the release of the 2,000 new samples. And then the next ebook after that will be on mojo journalism, which will include a breakdown of all pop culture bubbles and all of the mojo demographics that comprise them.
Isn't this like face reading?
Yes and no. There are other models out there that attempt to read the physiological cues in a person's face, such as microexpressions or Chinese face reading. In Pod Lair, we read the physiological cues of the face and the entire body, but more importantly, none of these other models acknowledge or know how to observe the quality that's the driver of these physiological cues and intrinsically informs in all of their meanings, which is why those models are not able to perform the feat of empirically reading a person's innate cognitive configuration, and why they don't have the cohesion of opinion that would go along with it.
Looks like you have a lot of such and such.
Yes, I like to have lots of such and such when I do big pushes on my research project.
What are Coach's issues?
His issues stem from being an extremely sensitive person who's pushed himself very hard in order to solve these cases that we're working on. His issues include general anxiety, amnesia, social anxiety, OCD, depression, fits of rage, intense relationships with autonomous entities, dissociation, and so on. However, these issues don't inhibit him from doing the work that we're doing. In fact, most of them help and increase the power of his processor.
I'm a hip cat. Actually, I'm a hip dragon. I may know about pop culture.
Okay, great. Hey, do you have any suggestions on any celebrities for us to investigate? See, we want to have, we're always looking for new celebrities that we don't have in our collection. We have 10,000 so far, but we want many, many more. So we want to know the mojo of any celebrity that we might be asked about, as long as they have sufficient media. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know. And if we don't already have them in our collection, we will add them to our upcoming casework.
How are you all involved?
We are research teammates. We are leaders, teachers, and test pilots for Podlair. Specifically, Coach is the founder of Podlair and the discoverer of the Mojo phenomenon. I am the Mojo reading instructor and resident Mojo journalist, and I'm 23rd level in the practitioner program. And Ademus is the CNC and theory instructor, and he is also 23rd level in the practitioner program.
What is the Rosetta Stone of the human soul?
The original Rosetta Stone allowed scholars to finally be able to translate 3 of the most important languages in ancient history, thus opening up a portal of vast new meaning into the human civilization that had previously been hidden. The data that Podlair has published with its huge list of celebrities with their innate cognitive configurations properly tagged acts in the same form, but for the entire human condition species-wide. And this turns the human story into a form of human math that explains all that's happened in past history, current events, and where we're headed in the future.
What is the value added?
You learn the fundamentals of how you work, including your conscious and unconscious powers. You'll learn about your ideal mate, what inspires you the most. You learn about your social alchemies, how to optimize all of your social interactions. You'll learn about the Mojo journalism, the real story of the human species, and you'll learn how Mojo directly relates to your understanding and fulfillment that you have with your spiritual experience.
Can you read my mind?
No, Mojo reading is not mind reading, which is made up anyways. Mojo reading does allow you to read a person's innate cognitive, in a person's core essence engine that's driving everything that they do, plus the various processes that they have, but not the specific data points that they may be working on. So a good analogy to use in this case is that Mojo reading allows you to read a person's bioprocessor, the software packages that they're running, but not the specific files that they may be working on, although you can make educated guesses on those. However, educated guessing is still not mind reading, it's merely mentalist parlor tricks.
Doesn't sound scientific.
Being scientific is not based on how something sounds, it's based on whether or not it has been validated using the scientific method, which includes observation, theorizing, prediction, and experimentation. Observation is looking at nature and using it to come up with inspiration for questions to ask. Theorizing is coming up with explanations for seeming mysteries or paradoxes that you're seeing. The predictions is making assertions, whether if the theorizing is correct.
Assertions of what?
Assertions of what will happen if the theorizing is correct. And then predictions, and then experimentations is testing out the predictions, that the predictions based on the theorizing are true and thus are repeatable by anyone using the same procedure.
Where can I find out more about your project?
You can go to our website, www.podlair.com, where you can find tons of info, and you can also ask questions that you might have on our forums. You can also download our first ebook, Podlair Proclamation, which is available through our website and also Amazon.com. And that's a great initial orientation. And you can also check out our network of YouTube channels where there are many instructional videos that you can peruse. And our flagship YouTube channel is called Podlair Planet.
How long have you all been doing it?
Well, Coach has been doing it for most of his life, so several decades now. Although at first he didn't know if he was ever going to be sharing this with his work with anyone because he knew there would be tons and tons of pushback. However, about 10 years ago he met me and he shared his work with me, and I was able to see the phenomenon for myself, and since then we've been preparing the data as proof of concept to show to the general public at some point. And about 5 years ago, we went beta public, which means that we started showing the data in a limited way. And that's when we met Ademus and he came on board. And right now, with the publishing of our first ebook, Podlair Proclamation, that signals the beginning of our full public disclosure phase.
Can you read so-and-so? Hard read.
Yes, we can, but we'd like to have some more time to work on their case. So if they can send in a video to our email, pod_lair@yahoo.com, we can take a look at it in our lab and get back to you.
How's your project going?
It's going really well. We just finished self-publishing our first ebook, Podlair Proclamation, and right now we're working on track 2, which is voicing.
What is your casework?
In order to prove that a model knows more about the human condition than any other model that has come prior, you need to put out a listing of thousands of known people, including what you think their innate natures are and why. And the only model that has done that so far is Podlair. Now, there are many models out there that claim to have insight into the human condition, but none of them have put forward or attempted to put forward the kind of scale of evidence required to make this case. Our samples and our casework are the most famous people from modern history, so that they have globally recognized presences and ample media that can be relatively easy to access by anyone through the internet, which makes for an ideal universal case study, a massive proof of concept display, and a bold statement as to the confidence Podlair has in its data.
What does Podlair mean? Why do you call it Podlair?
Well, Podlair is an imaginative original word that comes from Coach's Synomnia, and it can be translated as living in productive harmony with natural law. Being a Podlair means being a pioneer of the human condition, starting a heroic pioneer of the human condition, starting with yourself.
What is the practitioner program?
The Podlair Practitioner Program is comprised of 5 tracks with 10 levels each for a total of 50 levels. The 5 tracks are mojo reading, vlog voicing, outreach ops, media productions, and bubble building. And each one of these 5 tracks plays a vital role in the overall rollout campaign for Podlair, from first observing and understanding the mojo phenomenon to building out intentional communities based on these newly discovered human math principles.
What are relevant resources?
Well, you need a microscope to see at the cellular level and smaller, and you need telescopes to see beyond the solar system. In essence, you need proper equipment to make proper observations. With mojo reading, you are the lens that's observing the phenomenon, so you'll need to develop proper magnification and clarity in order to observe the phenomenon. We also use several methods like collaging in order to isolate and accentuate the signals that we're reading so that they're easier to note.
Sounds pretty far out.
Yes, Podlair is currently new, fringe, and a minority, but that's not what determines whether a theory is true or not. That can only be done through repeatable experiments. The many theories that now are considered fairly standard were deemed fringe when they came, like, you know, the theories of relativity, evolution, heliocentrism were deemed fringe when they came out by those who were later proven to have no idea what they were talking about. And on the other hand, many models with no empirical justification, like most of the spiritual models today, exhibit many of the characteristics that you would attribute to a cult, but are not called so simply because of size and popularity. Natural law is not a question of personal opinion or popularity contest. It is what it is.
What is the microcosm syndrome?
Microcosm syndrome is a pervasive trend that we've noted, which is that most bubbles, including families, there are only a few specific mojo designs that comprise them. Conversely, most people are under the false impression that most bubbles have many more different mojo designs than they actually do. And that's due to riff variations, which can be extreme, and also the differences of two people of the same mojo design being accentuated and highlighted because of closeness and proximity and familiarity.
Do you make any money?
No, Podlair is a non-profit research project. We do all of our casework pro bono, although we may monetize at some point in the future. Right now, though, our sole purpose is in sharing and teaching the mojo phenomenon so the entire world is aware of it as soon as possible. Getting the word out there about the mojo phenomenon discovery is definitely something we view here in Podlair team as a calling rather than a career.
Training sounds challenging.
Podlair training is the most challenging and rewarding personal development experience you'll ever have. You'll need to detach from all previous attachments you've had to what you thought the human condition was like. You need to challenge all of your assumptions in a profound way. You'll also need to be brave enough to be able to handle all of the game-changing implications that you'll become aware of as you proceed.
Is mojo reading difficult to do?
Well, the physiological cues that we're noting are subtle, so it does take training to be able to read them. And the ideal situation for doing a reading is to have video of the subject in a distraction-free environment. That being said, with enough time, energy, media, and training, anyone can be read and anyone can learn how to read.
Isn't this like typology?
Not really. Typology uses questionnaire evaluations and personal opinion to try and fit you into conjectured stereotypical personality descriptions as their way of determining a person's innate cognitive configuration. Whereas Podlair is directly observing the physiological manifestations that are created specifically because of a person's innate nature, their mojo, which is why none of the typology models are able to perform the feat of empirically reading a person's innate cognitive configuration, nor do they have the cohesion of opinion that would go along with it.
Can you read so-and-so over there? Standard read.
Yes, we can, but it would be better if we did a simple reading ritual, which is really easy to do and takes less than 10 minutes.
You're going to get a lot of pushback.
Yes, we will, and we have, and that's because our empirical evidence contradicts what the powers that be say things are supposed to be like and how they've stacked things up to their advantage. So all the pushback that we've received in the past and the pushback that we're likely to receive in the future, we view that as an indication of the importance and necessity of doing the work that we're doing. Every human has the right and responsibility to observe natural law as best they can and speak truthfully and publicly about what they've seen.
Where do you want to go with it?
First, we want to build out the online community so that we have enough practitioners with sufficient training to constitute a proof of concept demo team. Then we want to take that and use that as a blueprint to create a local demo team here in Long Beach. then we want to take the Long Beach location and use that as a prototype for other communities all around the world to develop their own demo teams, thus creating a global network of demo teams.
What is tacit knowledge?
Tacit knowledge refers to things that are hard to see or define, which can cause some people to incorrectly challenge the existence of things that actually do exist. With the Bessemer Steele legal precedent and others that followed it, it was determined, rightfully so, that tacit training is valid as long as it can achieve reliably repeatable results and that the ability can be transferred to others even if only a highly few trained individuals. And Podler training definitely, or Mojo reading, definitely has some tacit training in it. However, it easily passes the validation bar by feats that are reliably repeatable by a person and that are able to be transferred to other trained practitioners.
Have you read Obscure Troll Celebrity?
No, we haven't read Obscure Troll Celebrity. They weren't amongst our first 10,000 that we canvassed for our work, and at this time we don't know when or if we'll be able to get to him because either lack of media or toxicity.
I could spare a few minutes. Let's do this Mojo reading.
Want to do a reading ritual?
Yeah.
Well, great. So the way it will work is it will be just like you were in a local talk show, and I'm going to be asking you some general get-to-know-you questions. So you just hang out and respond as you feel like. So the important things here is that you feel comfortable and act natural while trying to stay where the camera can see you. So even if you're nervous, that's okay. Our methodology accounts for it. Every Mojo design has a spectrum of nervous cues, but they still determine, or they still are indicative of a person's Mojo design, so even nervous cues are readable cues. So are you good where you're at right now?
I'm comfy.
Okay, great. So I have the camera here, and I'm going to turn it on and ask you some questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question?
Answer.
Question?
Answer.
Question, question.
Answer and answer.
And follow-up question.
Follow-up answer.
Ding! Wonderful. You did great.
Yay.
Yeah, so if you just want to jot down your email address, I'll be happy to get back to you when we take a look at your video in our lab. Thanks for taking the time and have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Can it be faked?
A person will never manifest any physiological cues other than those that are created by their Mojo design. The entire pantheon of cues of a given Mojo design is vast, and a person can be purposefully or accidentally only showing a small, limited, specific portion of their entire pantheon of cues. However, even a portion of a pantheon of cues can be recognized as such, and once that's done, the remainder, even if never seen before, can be accurately predicted.
Isn't this like energy reading?
Good question. Yes and no. There are other models out there that attempt to read a person's energetic manifestations or emanations. However, none of those other models are able to read a person's core essence engine that's powering their energetic flow, which is why none of those models are able to perform the feat of empirically reading a person's innate cognitive configuration, nor do they have the cohesion of opinion that would go along with it.
What kind of project are you working on?
It's called Podler. It's about categorizing a person's innate cognitive configurations by observing the physiological cues that they're manifesting. And our casework includes all famous people with sufficient media to work with.
Why the weird words?
These terms come from Coach's Phenomena teaching story, which has a penchant for alien, exotic sounding names. These terms create a new language of understanding that is universal and crosses all cultures, just like the Mojo phenomenon itself. And the way it works with with new phenomena is that whoever makes the discovery gets naming rights on the new phenomena. So in this case, it was Podler Research who discovered the new phenomenon, so we get naming rights and we get to choose whatever names we like.
Indeed. Where are your practitioners located?
There are three core crew members are here in Long Beach. There are 6 others that are scattered in states around the country. And then there are 3 others who are located abroad.
Did you find everything you were looking for?
Yes, great. I found everything wonderful for my research project.
What are Coach's special abilities?
He has a vast pop culture facial recognition, and he's able to hold an entire collection of it in his head with all the cross-contextualized connections. And each one of the samples is color-coded to form one huge human math algorithm.
What is a proof of concept demo team?
In order to separate ourselves from the pretenders, the first thing that has to be done, which Podler has already done, is to achieve cohesion of opinion on all the available celebrities out there when it comes to their innate cognitive configurations. Next, we want to have 200 or more practitioners with sufficient mojo reading skill so that they have accuracy levels that are significantly and consistently above what you'd expect with random guessing. And once we've achieved that, we want to travel the world with our demo team and have the world travel to us to observe us performing these groundbreaking experiments under all the scientific and journalistic scrutiny that can be brought to bear.
How do you read people?
There are inherent qualities to a person's innate nature called qualia. There's a strong connection between a person's qualia and the physiological cues that they manifest. And the meaning of these physiological cues can be determined by those who are trained in mojo reading using the methodology called 5 gears of mojo reading.
Have you read Michael Fassbender?
Yes, we have read Michael Fassbender. He was amongst the first 10,000 that we canvassed for our ebook. His mojo is G-Nye, G code of conduct with Nye envisioning.
Sounds new agey.
Podler is both rigorously scientific and profoundly spiritual because that's the way natural law is itself. Without this integration, there would be seeming paradoxes in natural law that don't actually exist. And without addressing these incorrectly imagined paradoxes, any higher understanding in any field of inquiry is prevented.
Can you read so-and-so? Not interested.
No, not at this time. See, mojo reading takes a significant amount of artistic appreciation and energy to do, and right now we have a full daily case load for mojo reading. So usually when we're out in the field, we only do the reads that pop out to us easily.
Sounds intense.
Podler, oh, warning, our work is controversial and provocative. And that's because we're noting that people have innate natures or qualia, and that's something that people may disagree with strongly. Also because what a person's innate nature is not up to the personal opinion of the subject, and some people may be bothered by the fact that they don't have a final say in the determination of their innate nature. And also because in determining a person's mojo, it only takes a few minutes of video or in-person interaction, which is something that some people may find alarming.
What do you mean by artistic appreciation?
Well, mojo reading is both scientific and spiritual. Mojo reading is both scientific and spiritual, so it must be approached accordingly. None of the technologies that are existent today can compare to a human's ability for facial recognition, so it'll have to be up to human bioprocessors to solve this case. So when doing mojo reading, there are certain human instrument ritual protocols that must be observed in order to ensure the most accurate confirmations possible.
You seem very excited about your project.
Yes, we are very excited. It's had a huge positive impact in all of our lives. Once anyone looks at the data sufficiently, they'll see that it is awe-inspiring, addictive, and apex, which is why we're so excited to share this phenomenon with as many people as possible.
Why the term mojo?
Mojo refers to a person's complete self, which encompasses many facets. Facets like innate nature, soul, cognitive configuration, unconscious genius, and much more. Mojo reading, or the mojo phenomenon, encompasses all of these facets, and so it required a new, unique, all-encompassing term, and the term we chose was mojo.
How many people do you have doing it?
We are selective about who we include in the practitioner program because the work is very demanding and it's very important that the work be done accurately. Right now we have 12 practitioners who are leveling up enthusiastically, which is just what we need.
Where did this come from?
This came from Coach's Synopnia, which includes a teaching story and a color-coded algorithm. This color-coded algorithm deciphers the base programming of the human condition. And
insights?
The insights from Coach's Synopnia have been validated by real-world data and experiments performed by myself and other trained practitioners.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Well, you get out of it what you put into it. Pod layer training gives you the highest value added for the effort of any spirituality or any self-development, self-fulfillment model out there. There's unlimited potential for growth, but true growth comes with real effort.
What do you have planned for today?
Today, we're going to be working on the research project as usual, and today's mission focus is on field reads.
What is Edemus's background?
Edemus has been a dear friend of ours for over 5 years. He was the first person to come on board during the beta public phase. His professional background is in music, composition, production, and performance. And he's always had a big interest in the human condition, particularly when it comes to quantifiable qualia, which is why, for example, he's very knowledgeable about all the typology models that we've now made obsolete.
I think I've taken one of those personality surveys in school.
You probably have. Those were attempts at determining the person's innate cognitive configuration, but they'll fail, and always fail, because of two fundamental flaws, and those are: flaw number one is relying on questionnaire evaluations as opposed to direct empirical observation, and the second flaw is relying on the personal opinion of the subject for the determination of the innate nature, of their innate nature, which is like asking someone for the personal opinion on their blood type when they've never had tests, empirical tests, to determine what it is, and so they have no idea.
Does Podlair consider itself a typology model?
And Podlair does not consider itself a typology model, but it can easily see what they're unsuccessfully trying to do and can correct their work.
I think I know what I am.
You might know what your innate nature is, but you should be aware that less than 25% of people can guess their mojo accurately, and this inability to read extends to family, friends, and lovers because of lack of training, also because the cases of those closest to you, or the reads of those closest to you, are often the hardest reads even for experienced readers. And this inability to read extends further beyond that to larger bubbles like pop culture and nationality, as evidenced by the widespread microcosm syndrome, misperceptions of rarity, and so on.
You got it.
Woo! Got it! Random!
That's tougher than the straight through.
Random Randori, yeah.
It feels like does it feel shrunk in your head more now?
Yeah, it definitely feels smaller than it at first. Like even like one beat was hard to absorb. But now, like, having the full thing, like, it seems a lot smaller, which is really exciting.
Your cadence and combat seem just more sure and swift.
Yeah,
also.
yeah, and I can feel like it's going to get to the point where it's automatic, so I'm
it's
really excited about
to know that you could be asked about it random, like you didn't know it was going to happen, and you were able to grab the answer and say it in a timely way that you could easily do that in a conversation.
Yeah, just drop it in.
Drop it in, because, I mean, you were recognizing what the question was, pretty much instantaneous and hitting the answer.
Yeah, yeah. So
good times.
Good times. Yay.